to advance human health, wellness, awareness about healthy options and choices to make within the building design. She was formerly at the U.S. Green Council, where she's been responsible for um, tremendous development and volunteer activities across the globe. She has an amazing story, an inspiration for sustainability and action. So excited to get ready to welcome her on to the show. Looking forward to all of you calling in. The phone number to call in is 914-636-0110. Again, the phone number is 914-636-0110. And we're going to be talking with Rachel about the work that she's been doing over the years. We're going to talk to her about resilience, especially following the Hurricane Ian, how it destroyed Fort Myers, Florida. We are going to have a dialogue with her about a lot of the work that she's doing and has done, having mobilized over $275 billion in development for LEED certified facilities and deploying over 750,000 volunteers in 73 countries. She's regarded as a technical expert in her field, having led original research and technical papers to advance um, human health and building design. And this is a very important space because, there's one thing that COVID-19 taught us. It taught us to be more conscious of air quality, our indoor air quality. COVID has certainly taught us to take health a lot more serious. And, as you can tell, we have a significant opportunity, especially in areas that have been hard hit by extreme weather, to rebuild and build back in a way that allows us to design out some of the weaknesses of poor designing or poor structuring in the past. And it's not necessarily a bad thing that in the past, you put your boilers or you put your air conditioning and heating units on the ground floor or below grade. Now, today, after 10 years later, after Hurricane Superstorm Sandy, you put most of that material or that equipment above flooding levels. So you certainly have a tremendous opportunity to rebuild in areas to include solar, include thermal, include geothermal, include access to all sorts of clean, decarbonized power to keep homes warm and cooled as the weather evolves. But you also have the opportunity to make sure that the indoor design, the inner workings of buildings and inner workings of operations include, an appreciation or principles for quality air that's clean, that cycles through, gets rid of whatever pathogens or influences in the air by design, be it adding plants or adding more HVAC systems to increase the velocity of airflow, having temperatures cool or having temperatures set and regulated at a manner and pace that allows people to feel comfortable, not too hot, not too cold. These are all things that can really contribute to a wellness environment, but also make people more healthy and the buildings themselves less of a source of emissions that pollute the environment. So really excited that Rachel is going to be on to discuss these topics. I know last time we had Jim Kaloran call in from the Fuller Center. I'd love to hear from Jim again if he's out there. Or if you have questions and you're doing work in the area and you just want to get some insight or some suggestions on what you can do in terms of advancing the cause of wellness, be it in construction, operational design, interior mechanisms, or your workforce, definitely call and talk to us at 914-636-0110. Now, one of the things that I definitely want to just touch upon is the there's been some news about Ben Gordon and his son. As many of you know, Ben's always been a good friend of mine, and have a deep love and appreciation for Ben. I just want to make clear to everybody that I'm hoping that everybody continues to extend their thoughts and prayers to Ben's son, Ben, his family, and just lift them up in prayer and support, because I can only tell you that this situation is really, really tough. Being a father, being a parent with children today is hard. And I just want to say that, nobody passed judgment before, all the facts can come out. It feels like a total misunderstanding. I know Ben to love his children, love his family, and I can only assure you that, um, you know, knowing that this cancel culture can be quick to cancel people out. Being a parent today with all the pressures of internet and kids talking back and all that other stuff. I grew up at a time when, I was disciplined with the Eagle Belt. And for those that know the story of the Eagle Belt. It will fly if you disrespect your elders. So while we weren't abused, or at least in the definition of today, if you discipline your child, the same way you would try and defend yourself from someone trying to mug you, yeah, you deserve to be held accountable. But I can only assure you that from what the news has reported, it feels like a situation that's um, very tough. And I look forward to getting more facts and supporting Ben's son as he goes through this traumatizing situation, and hope that this is another lesson where we can learn from, but more importantly, get through. Um, Now, on the line, I know Rachel, you called in. Rachel, thank you for joining us. And I believe we got Rachel on the line. Hi there. Hey, Rachel, thanks for joining us. You came into a conversation about, or at least not the intro that I necessarily had in mind for you, but I can tell you that just from a separate standpoint, Ben Gordon's a good friend. Not necessarily going to discuss the dynamics with him, but wellness overall as a topic is something that we as a people and as a community need more of. And I thank you for sharing your time to join us to talk about the work that you've done at the U.S. Green Council, having you know coordinated and activated close to 1 million volunteers in hundreds of countries, globally. But more importantly, um, the standards you set to in 73 countries, sorry, um, and the standards you helped set, mobilizing close to 300 billion in investments. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing now, and then perhaps we can go back and talk about the transformations you made over time that led to the success story you are. But unfortunately, if you can hold that until we get back from break, you're listening to WVOX. So everybody on Instagram, I just want to apologize on Instagram. I'm having an issue with my internet here. Hey, hey Gerald, can you write down the Wi-Fi password so I can access the Wi-Fi? Thank you. For some reason, my Wi-Fi is not working in here, so it's reset. But I want to thank everybody on Instagram for bearing with us. um, on Instagram, you missed um, a dialogue of me briefly discussing the situation with Ben Gordon. And, thoughts and prayers go out to him, his son, his family. And my call is for everybody to pause and don't pass any judgment whatsoever, because we don't know the facts. And it feels like it's been a total misunderstanding based on some of the news that's come out. Thank you. Okay. And and it's just, astonishing that, here we go finding ourselves again in a very, tough situation when it comes to even disciplining your own child. So just know that, you know, going to keep supporting and elevating them up in prayer, and we're going to get through this. So you guys just stay right there. We're gonna make sure that we get this right. Hang on, guys. Hang on, guys. I'm just getting the Wi-Fi set. Just 1 second. Sign up at stamps.com with promo code BUSINESS for a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a digital scale. That's stamps.com, promo code BUSINESS. This is WVOX at 1560 for remade Fox Meadow in Larchmont for 1860. And now back to What Happened Here with Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon. All right, we're back, guys. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. You're listening to What Happened Here. I'm Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon. We're here every Wednesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. asking the question, what happened here with a particular situation? And before we went to break, I was introducing you all to our very special guest, Rachel Hodgdon. She's the president and CEO of International Well Building Institute. She leads a movement to advance human health. And prior to her role at Institute Well Building Institute, excuse me, she was at the U.S. Green Building Council, and she mobilized over 275 billion in LEED certified investments for facilities, deployed 750,000 volunteers across 73 countries. She's published over 1,000 pages of technical guides and original research. Tremendous inspiration, a change maker, someone that knows transformation. And we asked her to tell us a little bit about where she is now, what she's doing now. But then we want to go backwards and just kind of revisit her journey into becoming the inspiration she is. Rachel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us, the International Well Building Institute, we've taken a look at the stuff that you're doing. This is pretty important work. Can you tell and describe to everybody, what healthier companies mean and how it can help outperform, in the very competitive environment that we're in right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the generous introduction. IWBI, the Well Building Institute, we're a global organization. We're headquartered in New York City, and we are at the forefront of advocating for healthy places and spaces for everyone everywhere. We operate in more than 125 countries. We impact more than 20 million people a day. And we really look at all of the different ways in which those places and spaces where we live our lives can impact our health and well-being. We, as a species, spend more than 90% of our time indoors, even more during the pandemic. And so we know that where we sit and who we sit next to has a very outsized impact on our health. And if we didn't know that before we went into the pandemic, we certainly know it coming out of the pandemic. And especially in a moment like this, when masks and physical distancing practices and other things like that are really going away, we've got to focus on what our buildings can do to make us healthier. So things like improved airflow and ventilation, improved surface cleaning, with better, greener cleaning products, emergency preparedness plans. There are so many different ways in which our spaces can impact our health and well-being. I caught a little bit of your last interview, and I'll also note that our spaces can have incredible impacts on our mental health and well-being. They can improve our productivity, our focus, our mood, our ability to keep our energy reserves throughout the day. And we basically take all of the research that points to those benefits, and we translate it into practice and build it into more than 500 strategies in our primary tool, the well building standard. That's a roadmap that helps companies figure out the strategies that are most important to them. And then we validate that they've undertaken those strategies so that they can achieve the desired results in the form of a well certification or a well rating or a well score.
So can you tell us a little bit about how long does it take for a company to go through your process? I mean, companies, I know larger companies take a longer time. For example, when I was talking with some executives at Microsoft or Fruit of the Loom, for example, that went through an enterprise-wide change and they adopted some Microsoft platforms. It took them 3 years because they had, 15,000 employees across multiple continents. So it was a real big culture change. Let's look at, a large size business in New York, let's say 1,000 employees or 500, and you can go lower. What's your range of time it takes to introduce some of these concepts? Because, from the mental cultural aspect, it takes time, but from the physical aspect, I mean, getting permits aligned for heating and ventilation systems. So I just want to start with the mental engagement because mental wellness, mental health is a big, big, big issue, especially exiting the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, the answer is to some extent it depends. About 20% of Fortune 500 use well as their roadmap, so we cater to some of the largest, most complex organizations in the world, as well as the smallest little school district or an independent operation for senior living. And what we know is that health and well-being isn't a one-size-fits-all. We
Hmm.
try to help clients find their way to the solutions that work best for them. And we also know that that journey to establishing a culture of health is a journey and not a final destination. And so for larger businesses, we focus through our Well at Scale program on helping to acknowledge those steps along the way. You gave Microsoft as an example.
Hmm.
A simple policy change at an organization like Microsoft could take them years to roll out to their entire employee base. But the impact of that single policy change in a company of that size is vast.
Right.
Well, it can be applied at any scale. So it can be applied at a building scale, or it can be applied across an entire organization or something in between, like call it, all of your offices in the United States, for instance. Uh, when new construction is on the table, you have this once in a 40, 50-year lifespan of a building to make some really fundamental improvements to and enhancements to design. And so our well certification process for projects like that really tracks with the timeline of the design and construction process. So you're working with us all throughout that journey. Because the sooner that you put well on the table, the deeper the interventions for health and well-being can go. So like you mentioned the design of the heating and cooling system, for instance, that can have a huge impact on health and well-being, especially while, COVID is still raging, but not just on COVID, on the seasonal, cold and flu.
Hmm.
To our new construction projects that are participating as well to really choose some of those eco design strategies and then couple them with ongoing improvements to policies and programs. But if we're talking to a business on the whole, we're looking at what all their opportunities are and helping them to put that roadmap together.
We're going to continue to journey down with the GPS from the International Well Building Institute when we come back from break. Don't change that dial. Hmm. Man, I grabbed the wrong damn headphones. Look at me. All good. So, everybody, thank you again for being a part. Sorry for Instagram. We had some issues earlier with the internet. Not sure why it was acting up on Instagram only. But in between the break, I just want to make sure you know that I did, comment on um, Ben Gordon, and just, thoughts and prayers go out to his son, his family, him. It's definitely a tough situation, and hopefully, as the news appears to be reporting it now, it seems to be a total misunderstanding, and I hope that we all as parents reflect on this and know that disciplining children is very complicated, if it even was that. So I just know that when I grew up, it was a cultural and even religious approach that disciplining your child was part of not only growing up, but the expectation was you would get hit by a belt or you have to stand in a corner. It wasn't like abuse, like you defending yourself from someone that's trying to mug you or something like that. It's just, you get disciplined, get smacked in the hand, smacked in the face, like, that's what it is. But today, it just feels like the moment you discipline your child, or put hands on them to wake them up out of their whatever, emotional rage they're having, that, they need to be brought back to focus. um, I'm just telling you that it's complicated being a parent today, and it's like, where do you draw the line? And I'm just telling you all that I recall, my parents having to use hands as part of bringing us up, and the Eagle Belt was what it was called. The Eagle Belt would fly. So hey, um, I heard a bunch of stories from a bunch of people about how their parents gave it to them when they had that one, you know, terrible decision that they made to cross their parents or act out wrong, etc. So, my opinion, discipline is needed. The kids with the internet today, be it YouTube or whatever, TikTok, it's just too much. They feel too grown. They feel they know everything, but they know nothing. And you just gotta, you know, that's why a lot of kids are soft. That's right, because parents are afraid to introduce them to reality. But guess what? We're gonna have a lot of talks about this as time passes. But I can only assure you that I believe in strong discipline, and standing in the corner is the method that I think I've been able to reach an agreement with my wife on when the kids get way out of line. I don't, taking away games and taking away this, that to me is not enough. I think got to be a little bit more. But that's where I rely on sports to do the job of um, of being in a position to help provide the installation of values into our children, but in families, of course. But whatever. I don't want to pontificate on this too much longer, but I just wanted you all to know, especially on Instagram, what was said, because I had the connection issues earlier, and it was just not, it wasn't clear enough, and I wanted to just make sure those on Instagram got it. But when we come back from break, we're talking to Rachel. I'm going to challenge her on, why, a lot of these smart ideas aren't being more widely implemented. But we'll talk about that in the context of politics, as you know. So here we go. Coming back for break.
And now back to What Happened Here with Rich Thomas, the former mayor of Mount Vernon, on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon. You're listening to What Happened Here, and we're here every Wednesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. on 1460 AM on your AM dial or worldwide at WVOX.com, asking the question of what happened here with a particular situation. So, what happened here with building design? What happened here with operational design? What happened here with wellness? And before we went to break, we were on the road to wellness, talking with Rachel Hodgdon, President and CEO of International Well Building Institute. She leads a movement to advance human health. especially in senior living facilities, which is a tremendous need. And she was explaining to us, the process. And I just want to go back and say, look, we had a Hurricane Ian in Florida, wiped out large parts of Fort Myers. We had a same hurricane hit Puerto Rico, destroyed the southern part of the country. And we see more and more extreme weather events happen. These 100-year, once in a lifetime storms come every year. It's clear that climate change is having an impact. So, what's the holdup on implementing some of the lessons learned from a design standpoint, or what lessons can we apply from a wellness standpoint to help these communities, companies recover from a wellness standpoint to help the mental, um, support of the people that have been hard hit by extreme weather.
I love that question because I think, as you point out, the hits are going to keep on coming. And we've got to think not only about how to shore up the resilience of our buildings, but also the resilience of the people who reside inside of them. I think that there are lots of different strategies that we can deploy that can help us to do just that. We know that we can create spaces that are restorative and submit cognitive and emotional health. We know that when an organization, a school, a senior living facility is seen as really investing in its people, its employees, its students, its residents, that confidence will be higher in their ability to help them to navigate the future. So the kinds of policies that you have in place are really critical. We refer to them as people first policies. And a lot of what Wells maps out are what those people first policies can look like in order to create an environment of care. But the physical environment also matters. We know that if we fine tune things like thermal comfort and lighting, we can help people better focus during the day and sleep better at night. Or in a senior living facility, we can limit falls that can happen from those who may be struggling with their balance. We know that we can help people improve their respiratory health. You think about the kind of pollution that one of these catastrophic events often introduces into the environment. When we design our buildings to use healthier and safer materials, better approaches to cleaning, and improve ventilation, that we can give people that kind of respite indoors that they're not going to get outside.
So people that are listening or just joining, you're hearing from Rachel Hodgdon. She's the president and CEO of International Well Building Institute. She leads a movement to advance human health. And prior to her role at IWBI, she was with the U.S. Green Building Council and involved with that organization implementing transformations from construction design, sustainability, and it's a great opportunity to talk with her. She's an expert in her area, and just want to make sure you're putting together here you're picking up what we're putting down, and what she's putting down is, look, there's no time to wait or waste when it comes to implementing the best practices and policies available. So, the question I have is, when I look at, let's say, new home designs and new home construction, having the backup generation a few feet off the ground could make the difference between someone having backup power when the lights go out due to a line going down or not. Sandy, I think, taught us that having some of this mechanical equipment on the ground floor or below grade is not a good idea anymore, given the prospect of flooding. The challenges of heating and cooling or relying on one form of energy like gas, which was supposed to be a bridge fuel, but we need to look at some of the advancements that's happening with different types of power sources, but hopefully they're decarbonized. So, the question is, when will we see more types of energy become part of the building design? Like I've seen these solar tiles, but I haven't, they seem to be impossible to get. Is it a supply chain issue because of COVID, or is it just that the technology's not ready?
Yeah. Home with my parents, which will give them the opportunity to age in place. And we're trying to build a net zero ready home. So that means we just have to add a little bit of solar to have a zero energy footprint or even give energy back to the grid. And we're trying to design a house that's completely electrified. So no reliance on gas whatsoever.
And no, it is, and you know, you have the distribution systems from Con Ed that, or at least in this area, Con Edison is the utility company that is not fully equipped to handle the increased demand for electricity, and this is where I think a lot of people are going to realize the more and more the temperature changes, you'll see more and more brownouts. You'll see some hopefully, well, hopefully we don't see blackouts, but the challenge of having a distribution system that's not strong enough to move the power from where it is generated to where it needs to be consumed can be offset with some of these net zero investments into homes and buildings. But the process to do that is almost impossible, and that's where, again, not to solve all the problems, Rachel, but I will point out for the contractors that are listening, getting a permit is difficult, and it shouldn't be as difficult as it has been, even for solar, putting solar on roofs, or, you know, there's lots of money to change the last mile of lead piping from the EPA, but it's almost impossible to get the grants processed because the paperwork involved is like climbing Mount Everest. So, you know, is there anything that your organization can do to help people say, look, I want to implement this policy? Can you give me the roadmap? Are there any additional resources available to help us get access to funding to do more work in this area? Because, you know, I think good stewards of the planet would like to do it.
Yeah, I mean, easier to simply keep doing things the same that we've always done. Education, this is on with policymakers to reduce barriers to entry. For instance, we, with our president and community partners, to embed well practices into their green affordable housing certification. That certification is mandated or incentivized across many states in the U.S. So if you want to get that additional funding as a builder of affordable housing, you've got to align with those practices. And I think it's going to take a series of carrots and sticks to start to move the industry toward where we need to go. But rather than just foist these changes upon people, whether that's policymakers, whether that's contractors and builders, we've got to approach this in the spirit of partnership. So we've got an amazing program where we're working with mayors and others with leaders at the city level to really focus on what they can do to accelerate these healthy building practices. You know, whether that's expedited permitting for homes that are really trying to do their best, or whether it's culminating the community to share best practices.
Well, look, we're getting a lot of insight and direction on the road to wellness. Don't change that dial. All right, y'all. This is our final break, and we're going to hear a little bit from Rachel on, you know, who she is, what she's done, how she became the Rachel today, and it's a good, you know, good conversation. So just stay tuned for more. We're coming back from break in a few moments.
Then national news. Here is the latest update from Fox News Radio on 1416
Fox News. I'm Chris Foster. The Biden administration has formally released its national security strategy, calling for building strong international coalitions to advance our interests.
Both to shape the global strategic environment and to address these transnational threats that require cooperation.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan Supreme Court hears a lawsuit from a photographer about art copyrights.
Photographer Lynn Goldsmith took a picture of Prince back in 1981. Vanity Fair magazine sent that photo to Andy Warhol and asked him to transform it into an illustration of Prince. When Prince died more than 30 years later, the parent company of Vanity Fair, Condé Nast, used a different version of Warhol's illustration, but this time they didn't pay the original photographer.
Fox tornado in D.C. During arguments, Justice Clarence Thomas says he wants it known that he's a Prince fan. America's listening to Fox News.
Stay on top of the latest forecast with America's Weather Team in the palm of your hand.
Here's the latest from America's Weather Center.
It's Fox weather updates throughout your busy day, every day.
5 inches of rain by tomorrow.
Temperatures being 30 degrees above average.
Put the power of over 100 meteorologists and the worldwide resources of Fox in your hands with the Fox Weather Podcast. Precise, personal, powerful. Subscribe and listen now at foxnewspodcasts.com. Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
If it's got 4 wheels and gold chrome, Honda of New Rochelle wants to buy it. That's right. Buy cars.
How you doing out there?
Check us out online at HondaofNewRochelle.com or visit us on East Main Street in New Rochelle and ask for Igor. Working from home, maybe you don't need your car anymore, or perhaps you're looking to downsize to a one-car household. Whatever the reason, whether it's a car, truck, or SUV, sell us your vehicle now while values are at their highest. At Honda of New Rochelle, we want to see you profit from this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Just come in and talk to us. We want to buy your vehicle even if you don't buy from us. Stop by today or visit us online at HondaofNewRochelle.com and be sure to ask for Igor. Your current car has never been worth more than it is now. So cash in at Honda of New Rochelle. We buy cars.
Hi, it's Dr. Telecom Special Short Meeting. Please join me at lunchtime, 12:30 to 1 p.m., the third Monday of every month on WVOX. Phone Talk. We'll be speaking to experts in the field of orthopedic surgery, joint replacement, sports medicine, nutrition, and rehabilitation, covering topics that affect your health and wellness. I hope you tune into Bone Talk and join me as we explore these topics together the third Monday of every month at 12:30 on 1460 WVOX.
Amplify your voice on the forum at 1460.
Here we go, coming back from break.
And now back to here with Rich Thomas, the former mayor of Mount Vernon, on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. My name is Rich Thomas, former mayor of Mount Vernon, and you're listening to What Happened Here on WVOX, a Whitney Global Media station. And before we went to break, we were talking with our very special guest, Rachel Hodgdon, and we were talking about solutions to vexing problems that can really have a significant impact on accomplishing wellness, not just in the design of buildings, but in the design of operations of organizations and within the people that run those organizations. So wellness is a huge topic. Too many people take it for granted, but knowing now many of the lessons learned, be it from climate change to emerging from COVID, which is still a threat to human health. Rachel's organization, the International Well Building Institute, leads a movement to advance human health, and she has been marvelous in helping connect the dots so that listeners can see that the journey to wellness requires many, many, many steps. And some are simple, some are a little bit more complex, but everybody plays a role in making the environment better. So, Rachel, we are in our last segment of the show, and before um, we go into a few more points about um, the projects you're working on, can you just tell everybody, how they can find you, and then can you tell everybody how did you become Rachel Hodgdon, the leader of this movement to advance human health?
Well, thank you for that question. You can find us at wellcertified.com, and all of the evidence-based pathways for advancing health and well-being are made available for free with all of the research that backs it at wellcertified.com. How did I become Rachel Hodgdon? Well, I got married during the pandemic, so I was Rachel Gutter before that.
Yes.
How did I do this amazing work? It's a really interesting story. I spent a lot of time working in education, and I had gotten to a point where I realized a couple years after college that it wasn't how I wanted to spend the rest of my career. And my aunt said to me, "There's someone I really think that you should meet." She ran an interior architecture firm, and I went in 2 weeks from being her design director, from being her intern to being her design director. And we went to my former organization that you've mentioned, the U.S. Green Building Council annual Green Build Conference in 2006 on a whim. We drove through a blizzard on the Front Range to get there. And when I arrived, I saw all of this programming in the agenda on the upcoming launch of the U.S. Green Building Council's new green building certification, LEED for Schools, specifically designed for K-12 schools. I called my parents. They didn't pick up. I left a message on their answering machine and said, "You can stop panicking. I know what I want to do with the rest of my life."
Wow.
And that really kicked off a 15-year journey for me, focusing first and foremost on green buildings, but realizing along the way that making choices that were better for the planet were also choices that were better for people. So I would meet these teachers who would say, "I don't have the 2:30 headache since I got to my green school." That was a term that they had coined for how sick they felt after a full day in a school building.
Cinder blocks and like fluorescent lights.
And parents, when I went to visit these green schools and deliver the LEED plaque, who would hold up their child's inhaler and say, "Since coming to this school, my child doesn't need this Monday through Friday."
Mm.
And so that was why I was so thrilled about 6 years ago to come over to IWBI, first as Chief Product Officer, now as CEO and President, to really focus on the relationship between our buildings and the places where we live, our lives day in and day out, and our health and well-being.
And this is where, I get excited because when you hear someone take, a very small hint at a problem and then goes literally sets the world on fire to solve that problem. That's something that is truly transformative, and I can only tell you that it's these small nuances that you put in that make all the difference. And one of the things that I can say that I get frustrated with is when I hear public officials say, "Well, we don't have the money to do it. We can't do it." And it's like, it does require some capital, but in my view, it requires more will and persistence than anything, because what you're talking about is a human health effect that can really impact a child's ability to learn or a senior's ability to enjoy the rest of their golden years. And these nuances, be it changing the type of chair that a senior sits on, or changing a chair that a child sits on because they want to have better posture while listening and learning in class. These little things are huge, huge. So I commend you on the work and the journey and the challenge you took on, but I do want to just ask, you know what, if anything, can be done now? President Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act. He passed the CHIPS Act. You have hundreds of billions of dollars now available to governments and communities. What should governments, communities, businesses be thinking when they look at these new resources that are going to become available from the federal government to implement these measures to improve the economy and the environment?
Yes, great question. I mean, first of all, I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the cost of not taking these forward steps? And then I think the second is to recognize that, yes, there is some capital for some of these improvements that will be required, but there is a ton of untapped capital that is available to school districts, to our public buildings, even to commercial buildings. And that's where the will that you talk about really matters. You've got to identify someone on your team who can take the time to understand where those resources exist and put the time into the applications. Unfortunately, like anything with big government, there's a good deal of red tape. But I'll give you an example. The COVID recovery dollars that were allocated to schools, the vast majority of that has gone unspent, and what has been spent hasn't gone into improving our facilities, save a very small number of school districts. So, we're leaving money on the table. And I have a lot of empathy, having worked in school district facilities office. It's not always easy to get this funding. And if you work in a small school district, and the majority of school districts in the United States are, your head of facilities might drive the bus when the bus driver gets sick. So where are you going to come up with the capacity to essentially be the GC of a physical improvement project? But you got to start somewhere. There are so many low and no cost solutions that we can put into place. And all of those solutions, or at least many of them, are outlined at wellcertified.com. And all the evidence to back up why each of those strategies are going to matter. So we've got a special person on our team, Angela, who works on schools. And if you pop us an email for our customer service line, we'll make sure that you get paired up with the right resources. Same goes for local governments or really any other building sector. We'll help you to find your way to the right solution.
And these solutions are essential. And if you think about how hot it was this summer, or how hot it gets sometimes, especially in New York, and these old buildings, and schools have to be shut down from Chicago to New York City. Um, you know, a parent missing work could mean a parent possibly losing their job, or a parent missing out on an important meeting. Now, we all thank Zoom in virtual and video capabilities, but it's not the same as if your child's in class learning and listening, and your parent can focus on the work that they're doing to try and keep advancing their own lives. So the cost of not improving these systems from a mental wellness standpoint to a physical environment, internal indoor air quality standpoint, to the physical assets of a building, the pipes behind the wall, replacing the old lead pipes with, more sustainable pipes that are not going to make you sick. All these little things add up and save time and money, and also serve the environment, but also your health. So Rachel, I really appreciate your time in having this discussion, especially on the precipice of the 10-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. So much more to do. Hope to talk to you again in the near future.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. Everybody, that's our show this week. We'll be back next week with Nap Time. Charlie Knapp. We're going to talk about U.S. politics and how the midterms elections are shaping up with some predictions. We'll see you next week on What Happened Here.